How if you have to go into it, like how scary was the back injury? And like I suppose was it actually an injury or was it just sort of a couple of things that just kept getting, I suppose, over time tickling away? Like I was, to be honest, I had like a couple of back things throughout my career, had many epidurals, like I had a really bad disc that still to this day caused me a bit of grief. Like unless you've had one, it's hard to sort of articulate how debilitating they are.
Yeah, you're spot on, and that's probably what I've learned through it all of how many people have experienced certain things like that. And for me, I'd always, it's like playing footy, you get a sore back from time to time. But towards the end of 2022, just going into 1 week, it was like my back just locked on. And that was after the Adelaide game, which might have been round 21. And then from there, I was sort of getting work through my back. And then after about a week, it turned into this real bad like sciatic nerve pain. So that was up against Brisbane, and sort of felt like in the second half my calf got like really tight, and I just didn't think anything of it. I was like probably a bit stubborn, and then we got up against Melbourne that week, and I reckon my top speed running for the game was around 19, 20 Ks, and it's usually around 30, and I just couldn't go. And then that led us into the game to try and make finals to beat Collingwood, which was one of the toughest games of footy I've had to watch, and for how it ended, it was pretty hard sort of couple of weeks, and that sort of drove the group this year in a lot of aspects. So from there, sort of we rested my back. It's a bit of a long story, but then got better for a bit. But as soon as I got back into kicking ground balls, the nerve pain wouldn't stop and couldn't function. So had the surgery, and since then it's been really good. But like any surgery, it still can take 12, 24 months for it to really start feeling good again. But I was lucky towards the sort of the back half of the year started to feel really good, and the nerve pain was on my right side, so just kicking the footy was probably the biggest challenge.
The game you're referring to as well is the round 21 game against the Pies, 95 odd thousand, nearly 100,000. You had to withdraw because of the back. Like, I can imagine it spurred the whole team on, but yourself personally as well, to get back and perform the way you did this year. That must have been still in the back of your mind. Yeah,
absolutely. It's like 95,000. You're still, when you're not out there playing, you probably feel very lonely. Ultimately, it's like what you want to do is go out there and play. And then for that to not come on and for us to not make finals, which was an aspiration for that year, definitely drove us into 2023. But I think we probably learned some valuable lessons at the start of 2023 of not focusing too much on what we want to get and what is actually the process behind it, and how can we help each other sort of stay engaged rather than like worrying about what's to come. So definitely keeps you on your toes. You'll learn a lot of things throughout like a year of footy.
What's been the biggest like learning out of the whole thing? Because I know for a fact you're one of those guys that will never let a negative situation turn into something that's bigger than that. Like, I'm sure you've learned so much out of this time that you've had to spend out of the game in those short periods, but also, training and getting the back right. Like, did it lean you to focusing on the leadership, the mental side of the game of sort of getting yourself right and having confidence and knowing that, sometimes it's not like being a 16, 17-year anymore, just being able to strap the boots on, go out and play, learning all those bits and pieces that have probably built you into a more well-rounded leader now?
Yeah, you're spot on. Definitely for the on-field stuff with my back, I probably learned that I used to go in the morning at the club and just do like half an hour of touch, ground balls, kicking, and just try and smash that before training. And for me, like, the more the better. When a few of the injuries crept in, it's probably what can I do to work on my body, whether it be the Pilates before training, certain stretching, activation to get my body right, and then go out and perform on the track. So that was a big lesson on field. And then off field, I think the biggest thing for me was probably developed a fair bit of empathy for guys that have had injuries throughout their career, and how taxing that can be. And I feel like now guys that are going through injury battles and that, I can go up to them and relate to them and speak through. And if you play footy long enough, you're going to have injuries. But at your lowest times, you feel like that's when you need people to lean on, and that's what I had at the club, and hopefully I can be that to others as well.